absolutely very disappointed. Very disappointed with this kind of thing.
At this stage, we've got a gentleman who's quite, he was quite unhappy and he was, I believe, quite aggressive. He's waving his hands around and getting right up in my face. He appears to have a problem with the baggage search. He says he's been searched a number of times. He believes he's been racially or religiously targeted. If you're angry...
I'm not angry. I'm never angry in my life.
Well, you're starting to get...
My name is Ozzy.
You are starting to get very...
My name is Ozzy. They never call me Osman.
You're getting very aggressive and very close to me.
Never.
And you shouldn't be doing that.
Never I done that one.
No. I'm sorry you're upset, but let's just try and work out what the problem is, OK? Let's just try and come to some kind of an agreement.
Okay.
Right. Can you please tell me what is it that you're upset about? And I'm happy to listen to you.
Okay. This is the second time I come from Nairobi. Why I remain here for the last half an hour? What I did for?
So you're upset because you've been examined twice? Is it twice?
Why were that Australians? They went outside, behind of me, of my queue.
Right.
Why?
Why are other people going out?
Yeah, look, why?
All right. Can I explain what these people are doing over here for a start? Would you like me to talk to you about what's happening with these people?
Yes.
All right. Those people over there are all being risk assessed by the quarantine officer, and they're all going through. These people here have goods to declare.
Absolutely, it's not a...
Have you been drinking?
With Australian laws requiring all visitors to be of good character, arriving passengers must declare any criminal convictions. Timothy, a 25-year-old New Zealander, has just arrived from Auckland. He's told immigration that he's been in trouble with the law in the past.
He's ticked yes to criminal convictions.
All right.
The checks that have come back has given us a completely different story.
Oh, goodness. So he's tried to sort of hide some of his convictions.
He's tried to hide. Well, he hasn't declared it on paper.
Right.
And what's come back is he's actually done 18 months imprisonment all up.
Right.
Timothy's plan is to work on a farm in Western Australia. What he tells Immigration Officer Maggie in this interview will determine whether he'll make it past the border.
Have you been drinking?
Yes.
Right.
But I'm not alcoholic.
You're not?
No.
Because I can smell alcohol.
No problem. Oh, that's an excuse now. No. Don't do that.
No, well, I can smell the alcohol from
no
here.
No excuse that.
All right, anyhow, look.
Yeah.
What is a problem is if you start yelling at me and yelling at my officers and waving your hands around.
I never yet. I never aggressive for alcohol, and I never abusive for a human being.
Right.
I never talk very nice for everybody. And I was a former Somalian diplomat for more than 20 years.
In Canberra?
20 years.
In Canberra?
No.
Where were you?
I've been in China. I've been in Libya. I have been in Italy. How diplomat can be aggressive?
Do you understand why customs would want to look in people's luggage?
Why only me all the time? I'm not happy.
You're not happy?
I'm not happy.
For the customs officers responsible for checking incoming mail, every day brings something different. And this parcel turns out to be something very unusual.
The colour that it's showing to us there is that the material is organic. Not necessarily food, it could be cloth, it could be leather, but it will come up saying that this was once alive or this was an organic material, this is what the basis of it is.
Kerry has handed the suspect package over to fellow officer Susan to determine if it is concealing a prohibited item.
I need to talk to you more about the criminal convictions. So can you tell me the history of your criminal convictions?
The history?
Yeah.
Scares me being a dickie when I was younger.
In immigration, Maggie's trying to get to the bottom of Timothy's criminal history to decide whether he can pursue a dream of working on a farm in Western Australia.
Well, when was the first time that you were charged?
Back in 97, I think it was. So misuse of a motor vehicle or something.
And some others?
There's a few theft charges after that, minor thefts. And then a drink driving charge.
Were all these convictions in New Zealand?
Yes, they were, yes.
This is a very important question, this one. Yeah. Did any of these convictions receive a sentence by a judge for a term of imprisonment?
Yes, they did.
mail centre, a large suspect package has been opened by Australia Post so that customs officers can examine it.
Well, what we have here is what appears to be an oversized stuffed animal. It's the only thing that's in the package, so it's the obvious thing that we're going to examine. The X-ray image was unusual, so it requires a further look. So the kind of thing we'll be looking for when we get it out of its packaging is any evidence as to whether or not it's been tampered with. So the kinds of things we're looking for here is we're examining the stitching to see whether or not it's in its original format, to see whether or not it's been tampered with, or does it still, you know, look like it's intact. It looks like the stitching is very loose here. It's actually broken, it's coming apart. It's definitely different to the surrounding stitching. So there's two possibilities. Either the toy has been torn and repaired, or somebody's inserted something inside and then tried to cover it over. Okay, well, I'm just feeling around inside the head now, and I've located something which doesn't feel like the rest of the foam around it. It's definitely a foreign object.
A former diplomat has just arrived from Nairobi. The customs officer is concerned that the song and dance that the passenger is putting on may be a diversion.
You waste your time. I'm not a criminal. What's the 2 million is coming black sheep for me? Sorry? Why? Oh, come on, go. Could you please tell me? I'll take
All right, well, look, I've tried to help you, and I'm trying to talk to you and trying to explain the process.
What do you explain for me?
But if you don't want to hear it...
No. I don't want you to talk anymore.
No, but if you're upset about being examined before...
It's not that.
It's just this time.
It's 1,000 people are coming here.
Right.
1,000 people every day.
Probably more. No, more.
Only me.
Would you like me to show you records that proves that that's not true?
Forget about it. Look, where's the queue now? Where'd they go?
Right, well, and I explained to you
You're
before...
only me.
No, and I explained to you before...
Come on.
You're the only person here.
The only person black sheep here.
With Aussie firing up like this, it's not going to make customs' job any easier.
So what concerns me, Timothy, is the actual charges
Yes.
are mainly burglary.
Yes, I understand that. It was just all opportunist stuff one night, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Bad time.
Timothy's past has come back to haunt him, and Immigration Officer Maggie needs to determine if he poses any risk entering Australia.
So is there anything that you can tell me about that was happening in your life at that time?
I've actually got a psychiatry report.
You have a psychiatry report?
And character references and everything over there.
Anticipating possible problems with his past, Tim has come well prepared to argue his case.
So when you say you have a psychiatry report...
Department of Corrections.
All right. Well, I'll take some time to read this, and my duty manager will also read it as well. Okay. I don't know what the outcome will be for you, Timothy.
While Tim seems to be making all the right moves to gain a working visa in Australia, it will be up to Maggie and her colleagues to make the final decision.
I'm a bit disappointed that right from the beginning, when he filled out his declaration, that he didn't declare everything. But he did tick yes to a criminal conviction, which says a lot for him. You know, he declared it from the beginning. He just didn't declare the whole lot.
Aussie thinks it's his colour and his name that drew Customs' attention to him. But what really interested Customs was his body language as he approached the exits.
We're at the point now where I'm really trying very hard to risk assess you, and you're making it really difficult for me. You don't want to answer some of the questions, all right?
What questions you need?
Well, for a start, straight out, I ask you what you do for work, you tell me you're self-employed, but you won't give me any details about
Why
that.
I give you details?
All right? No, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But my job is to risk assess.
Risk
right?
assess.
You asked me...
I'm a risk in Australia.
You asked me before
Oh, this is a big
what
problem.
we do. No, it's not a problem. It's what we're asked to do. And in order to do that, we look at the luggage and we talk to you and we risk assess you. All right? If you're telling me that you're just going to not talk to me, or you're going to yell at me and wave your hands around, and then
No, I'm not.
and then you want to
Why
walk
I'm
off.
talking to you. 5,000 people are coming here.
It makes our
because
job.
the name of the same.
It
You
makes our
see
job
that?
really, really,
No,
really
why,
difficult.
man? No. I'm not helping you for that.
All right.
Never, ever.
All right. So my question still remains: do you have anything on your body?
In Sydney, Tim seems to have impressed Maggie with his honest answers. But will that be enough to grant him a working visa?
You can tell when people aren't telling you the truth and are being completely open and honest with you. He's looking at me directly. His emotions seem to be quite stable. A little bit concerned that one of the burglary charges were quite recent, in 2003.
Maggie will now confront Tim with her concerns.
If I was to ask you what your drinking habits are, what would they be?
Normal 25-year-old behaviour. Everything out on the weekends and work hard all week so I can afford to do it.
And what about socially?
Socially, yeah, just weekends and...
So how much alcohol would you consume on the weekend socially?
A bit.
A bit?
A fair bit, yeah.
The psychologist has indicated that when you get depressed, you turn to alcohol.
Yeah.
And he has stated here that if you keep drinking excessively, that you could possibly reoffend.
In the mail handling centre, a large stuffed dog is being examined by customs. It seems to have a lot more than just foam inside it.
I've located something which doesn't feel like the rest of the foam around it. It's definitely a foreign object. And just removing that now. And there we go. It's a small bag of a white powdered substance. My first guess would be that it's cocaine. It's coming from South America, so that would be the most likely product. However, any narcotics can come from anywhere these days, so it's not guaranteed to be cocaine, but it's generally the most likely from that region of the world. But we'll need to do some other tests now to try and see if we can narrow that down. But it's certainly very good. It's been well done. You could say that it's just a toy for a child.
However, this is one stuffed toy you wouldn't want your kids to play with. In Sydney, Timothy's case has been escalated to airport manager Petra. The decision on whether or not to deny someone entry into Australia is not taken lightly by immigration.
That looks like an extensive rap sheet.
That's right, it is. But there are a lot of offences that he was charged together concurrently.
Concurrently,
yes.
yeah.
And he's been very cooperative so far, and he's helping with all the inquiries and is giving out all honest, forthright answers.
Tim has several glowing character references that seem to be earning him some points with Petra.
One is from New Zealand Police recommending him because he's been helping with the rescue and search of a person who was injured.
And it was while he was recovering from an injury to his
That's
head
right, yeah.
that he actually pulled out all stops
Yeah.
to give first aid
That's right.
and assistance to
Yeah.
this seriously injured farmer.
So he's kind of involved in activities with the community, rescuing and...
More than that, he
Yes.
took a 12-year-old from his horse who was basically going crazy.
What we need to look at is whether a person with this kind of background is going to be acceptable in the Australian community or not.
So his plans to work on a farm in Australia might disappear if immigration sees Timothy's past criminal activities as a threat.
Interview recommence at 10 a.m. Okay, Timothy, I've got good news and I've got bad news, okay?
Customs has found white powder stuffed inside this toy dog, and they'll now determine what the substance is.
What I'm going to do now is make a small incision in the packaging, remove a sample of the powder that's in here, and then test it using a field narcotic test kit to try and get an indication as to whether or not it is cocaine. Okay, they've wrapped it in a couple of layers of plastic. It's worth a lot of money, so they don't want it to just leak out through the foam in the dog. So I have a sample of it there. you can see a blue layer forming at the bottom and a pink layer forming just above it. So that is a positive test, indicating that the substance is probably cocaine.
The stuffed toy contained nearly a kilo of cocaine, with a street value of $150,000. AFP investigations revealed that the address and consignee name were false. Osmond has just arrived in Sydney. It's been a long trip and he is a little tired and emotional.
And you are not doing...
The gentleman came to the notice of customs because as he was approaching the Green Channel, he appeared to exhibit unusual behaviour. And so an officer saw this, and sometimes unusual behaviour can mean that a person has something to hide, and the officer believed that he needed to examine the person further to determine if he had anything. If I was to detain you for a frisk search to make sure you have nothing on your body, how would you feel about that?
Check.
You have no problems?
No problem at all.
All right, okay.
Come on, go.
Okay, just one minute. If I was to give you a rights card that lets you know what your rights are, would you be happy to read that in the English language, or would you prefer another language?
I prefer Chinese language.
All right, okay, no problem. Is that traditional, or is it simplified Chinese?
Chinese, Mandarin.
All right, okay. Just don't yell at the officer and please remain calm. Otherwise, the next step I have to take is and then I have to get some help from our security people to come down and help us out. And I would prefer that you remain as you are now. All right? That's what I'd prefer to do.
That is it. That is it's offensive. You offend me
by...
to don't say my rights.
Well, we're going to give you those. We're going to give you those.
Okay.
All right? And I'll give you those now. You said you've worked in China, so you probably speak Chinese. Is that true, or would you prefer an English card? Or would you prefer something else?
Okay.
Officer,
I'm
can
going
you
to
make
just
a
go
note
over
on
your...
the time of the frisk search?
I'm just going to go over your clothing. I'm not going to touch your skin. If you feel uncomfortable, we can stop. Okay, we'll start again when you're feeling comfortable. Okay? Is there something there?
How I know how many buckets I got?
That's fine.
Happy for that?
With the frisk search over, Maurice and his team are confident that Osmond has nothing to hide.
Okay, Osmond. There's your ticket there. Just make sure you've got that, all right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry you've had a bad day.
No problem at all.
Do what you need to do, and
I will do.
I hope it gets resolved, all right?
No. I will go to the legal advisor.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Anyhow, I don't mind. I don't mind.
Satisfied that the passenger is not carrying any prohibited items, he is free to enter the country. Even though Osmond claimed to be a former diplomat, that didn't afford him any extra privileges, as Customs' job is to screen everyone entering Australia.
Thank you very much. Anyway, I'm free man. I'm free Mandela now.
So all up, you were...
In Sydney, this New Zealand passenger with prior criminal convictions is about to find out if he has convinced immigration to let him cross the border and work as a farmhand.
So a decision has been made to refuse your special category visa, okay, and we're going to grant you what we call a border visa.
Okay.
Special category visas are issued to New Zealand citizens to allow them to work during their stay. The border visa will only allow entry.
But there's a condition to this border visa and does not allow you to engage in employment.
Okay.
All right?
It's not the decision that Tim had hoped for, but it does not mean that his chances of picking up his life in Australia are dashed. He will have one more lifeline when he arrives in Perth.
We're giving him a chance to be immigration cleared and to present his case more thoroughly. But he can go to our main office and speak with the case officer and present more details to them, and they will run further checks, some more character checks, and take it from there.
Tim has not turned up for his appointment with immigration. His border visa expires in 30 days.